Good evening and welcome to Information Please, your Peoria Public Library on the air, bringing you information about your library and your community. This evening my guest is Stacy Peterson, who works with programming at the library and always knows in-depth information about what we have going on. Hi Stacy.
Hey Tricia.
October has been a very special month in Peoria because we're focusing on women in arts. And what's the official title?
October, actually, the official title is the Citywide Celebration of Women Artists. October is Arts and Humanities Month in the state of Illinois. And there's a local art historian, a woman named Channy Lyons, who in her spare time built this massive database based solely on Illinois women artists. And over the years, this has grown and grown. And Channy actually, in June of this year, had her own solo show at the Harold Washington Library in downtown Chicago, showing slides from her database with information about the artists. And it was up for a month. And she was wholly inspired by this entire experience and decided that she wanted to get everybody involved in celebrating female artists. And that's what is happening right now in Peoria.
Great. And we're part of that?
We are. We are part of 26 different venues. And I would say it's the Tri-County area. We have everything from Pierce and Pierce Gallery with Carrie Pierce's oils and acrylics to Liz Barnes to Suzette Boulay, who is not only an art supporter but an incredible artist. The galleries that are both located in Peoria Heights and in Junction City, Exhibit A and Picture This. Studios on Sheridan, everybody is featuring women artists this month. It's very interesting. So you can go everywhere, and we are absolutely proud that they would come to us and think of us as a venue to contribute into this program.
Yeah, it's great. And I have just a little bit of a sample here we can look at as people want to come down to the gallery. And we have mostly paintings here, but our exhibit's going to have a lot more in it.
Our exhibit is really interesting. When we decided to curate this show, a lot of our friends who are female artists in the community were already exhibiting elsewhere. So we called up our friends at the Peoria Historical Society, knowing that they had many pieces that were both donated and on permanent collection. And I proposed that we do a show called Women's Work, and that we do not just oil paintings and acrylics and watercolors in some cases, but that we also showcase some of the functional things that are, I think you're now kind of seeing a comeback. So embroidered tablecloths and table runners and pillowcases, red thread work, anything from that, aprons that are made. All of us had days of the week towels growing up.
Yes.
And those really were samplers even, corn husk dolls. So we're trying to kind of expand the boundaries of art in this example, and we're highlighting it, of course, with these pieces. And we do have some lovely pieces. In addition to these, we have two pieces by Camilla Kenyon. Camilla Kenyon was the mother of the late Les Kenyon, who was not only a pioneer in changing pretty much the architectural landscape of Peoria, but also preserving many historical buildings. He passed away a couple of years ago, and his wife, Theo Jane, of course, was a contributor to the Peoria Journal-Star for many, many years, and is still active in the community. So
she is.
We're happy to have Camilla's pieces also on display.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and I think people at one time stopped thinking of those things that beautify the home as art, but if you think the difference between a house that just has plain white, pillowcases and ones that are embroidered, and it's always been a way for women to work some art and some design and some color and beauty and grace into everyday life to be able to see those things. So
I'm glad that you bring that up, because one of the most popular shows that I think we've had in the library gallery was one that exhibited both quilts and pottery stoneware.
Yes.
And the quilts really took on a different meaning when they were hung up on the wall as art. And we had so many people who came in with positive comments about that. And we decided to put some quilts also on display. We were unfortunately unable to hang them because both of the quilts that we have currently that are in cases were made in 1860 and 1880. So we don't want to, compromise the fabric too much. But you can see them in the glass case, and they are absolutely beautiful quilts. And knowing that they were made for a functional reason, and yet we're able to see them now, and they weren't completely beaten up to death over use, it's really a kind of an astounding experience to see.
And women put so much of themselves into those designs, and even if they're using a you know, a design that was done by somebody else. There's the fabric choice, or making do with what they had, which some of the older ones is, you know, what you had is what you have to make something lovely out of. And they did.
Yeah,
did.
It's amazing how industrious they were. We also have some, everybody's got a doily from their Nana. And
Yes.
so we put some doilies out on display as well. And it's very easy for us to kind of think about going to our grandmother's house and seeing the glass dish of Hard Rock candy with a doily underneath it. We've all had that experience. But when you actually look at the handiwork, I certainly would not be able to do anything like that.
Yeah.
And it really is kind of amazing and gives us a relationship with those textiles that I think is really unique and yet universal.
Yeah, and the sharing that went on. People teaching other people, women teaching other women to do that kind of thing, sharing the patterns, making it available. I think the word of mouth thing is what's missing now. Except we do have quilt guilds and sewing guilds, and so that part of it is coming back a lot.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
YouTube is not the same.
Right.
Learning to crochet on YouTube is not the same as your Nana teaching you.
That's right, and you're exactly right. People before my time used to sit with their grandmothers and learn how to do that, and that is an art that needs to be preserved.
Yeah. Oh, I have a vivid memory of being 5 or 6 and learning to do French knots, sitting on a stool on the floor next to my grandmother's knee and learning to do French knots, which is the single best embroidery stitch I do.
Did you teach that to your daughters then?
I don't know. I don't know if it stuck. I tried. I don't know if it stuck. French knots, yes. Well, there's a lot more going on besides just this display, although this is very accessible because every day that the main library is open, the gallery, it's free, walk in.
Yep.
We're open from 9 to 6, Monday through Saturday. Just walk in and see it. So it's very accessible for up through November 9th even.
Up through November 9th, and actually it seems a little bit like an odd ending date. After November 9th, our gallery will then switch over to the Veterans Art Show. But November 8th and 9th is the actual Women's Artist Symposium at Bradley. It is free and open to the public. If people Google the Illinois Artist Symposium or Citywide Celebration of Women Artists, they can get a list of the events. And I would say 80% of the events are free, if not all of them are free and accessible during those 2 days. And you can come and listen to people lecture, like Dr. Sarah Glover, who's an art historian at Bradley. There are plenty of discussions, and there are women coming from all over the state to contribute to this conference. So
wonderful.
We're really hoping that we can be a part of that as well. And they'll be touring our space, and that'll be very exciting.
Yeah, that'll be very exciting. But we have some other events that are just coming up right around the corner here.
We do actually. Right now we are in the absolute middle of our female filmmakers series because we didn't want to forget that there were not just women artists, but there are women filmmakers and screenwriters. So we already started off the series at the beginning of the month with A League of Their Own, directed by Penny Marshall. Those were really our stipulations, either directed or written by a woman. And then we showed Bright Star, which was directed by Jane Campion, who did the piano. Tomorrow we're going to show Yentl, Barbara Streisand, who pretty much did everything in that movie.
Yes.
And then next week we're going to do the Indian version of Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, goodness.
All at the North Branch, all at 1 o'clock on Thursdays. So that we've definitely got that going. This Saturday at the main library, we're doing something that we've never done before at the library. This is going to be really exciting. We're not holding a traditional reception for this show because most of the artists have passed away, and we thought, we'll just have it open and extend that time. But we do have a group of high school students who are submitting digital pieces, and these pieces are going to actually be submitted on a slide. And we are going to show those in our fantastic facilities in the auditorium at the main library. And we're going to have kind of a breakfast reception. That's going to be on Saturday the 26th. The high schoolers from, again, the Tri-County area have been invited. And again, they've never not only not exhibited together, but never in this way. And we've never done anything like this. So it'll be kind of a neat way to come to the library and see multimedia art in a way that we've never shown it.
Yeah.
They've never seen it exhibited.
Yeah,
so
that'll
we
be
invite people to that.
That'll be different and fun, and probably bring some suggestions that we'll be able to go on expand this as time goes on.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to see some more multimedia demonstrations, because all of our facilities certainly have the capability of it.
Yes.
I also invite people while they're visiting either the Friends Book Room down on that lower level 2 at the main library, or coming to the auditorium, that they stop. We have the Wheeler case down in that same area across from our lovely computer lab. And this month, we actually have, they're not women artists, they're young men, they're Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
They wanted to be a part of the celebration, and they approached Shani, and Shani asked us if we had a venue suitable, and I said, I think we've got just the space. And they're bringing over sculptures, and the sculptures are on display with the artist's statement the entire month of October.
And what age group are these young artists?
Boy, I think they're 3rd, 4th grade in that area, so people need to come over and celebrate these young fellas, because it's going to be exciting to see their work on display for the first time ever. It's the inaugural show of this Boy Scout troop.
And young artists, I love kids because they're so uninhibited, and especially young men haven't not yet been taught that, art's not cool or you're a sissy or whatever. And I hope we're past that, but in reality we're not. Yeah. So how wonderful to have them exhibit and fresh and young and in a public place that people can really enjoy and see.
It's been an interesting month, because earlier in the month we celebrated the Peoria Women's Club. There's actually a movie done by a local. He used to run an auto dealership, and now he's a filmmaker. He's a man named Dave Wood. He produced and directed a movie celebrating their 125th year. And for people who aren't familiar with this group of women, they were absolutely vital in contributing to the arts community in Peoria.
I'm not sure we'd have an arts community or a library if it weren't for the Peoria Women's Club.
I think that is exactly right, Tricia. I really do.
The symphony, the ballet, the art guild.
Yes. All
everything.
of them derive from the efforts of these incredible women. And
yes.
They're trying so hard to restore kind of an opera house on the 2nd floor of their historic building downtown.
It is beautiful if you've ever been in it. And that place was packed weekly. They did plays. They brought in speakers.
Famous musicians and bands, full bands.
Yeah.
And, to celebrate that group of women, many of whom are our age, they're always looking for new members. They need new members for their monthly meetings. And to celebrate them and then to kind of close out the month with these Boy Scouts, it's just been an incredible time for arts in Central Illinois.
Well, and I think what it does is it shows what a gathering place the library can be for the community, because we're probably one of the few places that can do these kinds of things for such a wide variety of people from our community and highlight what's right here. People forget what's right here.
I've always said, and it's really interesting, if you look at the 3 shows that we have in line, we had the Caterpillar Advertising Show, which brought in history and graphic design, and then the women's artists, and then next month the veterans. I tell you, if you can't find something to do in Peoria, you're simply not looking far enough. And
exactly.
All you have to do is come to the library, and we will give you all kinds of culture and arts. So it's really fun. It's fun to bring this to the people.
It is.
And to see their responses.
Well, and you mentioned our the next show that's coming up. So let's talk about that. We've dropped a couple of hints. So let's talk about it. It starts obviously right after this one.
Right after this one, so we've got the Veterans Art Show. And the Veterans Art Show, this year we're calling it Home for the Holidays. Last year we had the first showing that we know of its kind, and we partnered with the local Order of the Purple Heart, and Nancy Davis, who's not only a local photographer, but she kind of pioneered and led this team. And we opened up applications to anyone who was a veteran or anybody who was active service, anybody who used art in any medium. You could paint for fun, you could paint for therapy, you could do photography, you could carve duck decoys. We wanted to see your artwork. And the only problem that we had with this exhibit was that we felt that it was too short and that a month wasn't long enough.
Yes, especially as people trying to come into town to see it.
Exactly. We wanted to do this around Veterans Day. That was very, very important, so we could get some local veterans in and celebrate what they've done for our country. Well, this year, Nancy and I were planning for this, and I said, I think it'd be a nice idea if we had this for the holidays, because we're going to get service people who are going to come home with their families. Wouldn't this be a nice thing for them to see? And she immediately agreed. So we are looking to pack that gallery in November and December with incredible art. You know very well from working with the Purple Heart gentlemen last year, they are a wonderful group of volunteers. Very fun, very involved. And we're going to be showing a couple of war movies, Bridge Over River Kwai, and I can't remember the other one. I want to say The Great Escape at the North Branch to celebrate veterans during the month of November as well.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
And we should let people know the library is open on Veterans Day.
It is.
It's one of the holidays that a lot of federal locations are closed, but we are open. But we're closed the day after Thanksgiving, which sometimes people don't expect.
Right.
But
And
we
if you
open
don't
up
get the
again on
paper,
Saturday.
You don't always know that, so.
Yeah, exactly. You can look on our calendar, and we always put those holidays that were closed right up there on our hours page, and so you can see that. But so if you have people coming in for Thanksgiving, the day after we're closed, Saturday you can see the exhibit, and Sunday we're closed.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. And we do need to mention some of our local music that we've got
we do,
coming up.
because there's a lot of that.
A lot of that coming up. Boy, the music in the Mackenzie series has continued to go and just kind of plug away, and the crowd continues to build. Since we're in the month of October, this Sunday, for our October performance, we have a gentleman who, when I first saw him perform, he lived in Michigan. Now he lives in London.
Oh,
and we are
goodness.
so lucky that he is doing a North American tour, and we were able to get him. It's a guy named Brooks Williams. He is a male singer-songwriter, does a lot of folk music. And I would say if you listen to somebody like John Prine, even some James Taylor, he's mellow, but sometimes he can really rock out. He's a really interesting performer. 2 to 4 this Sunday, Mackenzie Room, North Branch, absolutely free. We want people to show up and really enjoy the rest of this year. So
And the sound in that room is fabulous. That room was not built as a music venue, and just by chance it turned out to be a wonderful place to present music.
Yeah, and that was kind of an experiment, I think, when we first had the Straybirds play, September of last year. We didn't know what it was going to sound like or what kind of sound they would need, and they booked it from, they booked their sound equipment from North Carolina, and when they played, and that first song, I just remember it ringing out into the room and thinking, oh my gosh, that was a lucky build. So we really need to thank our wonderful architects for having the foresight to do that.
To do that. Well, that's October. What's coming in November in Music in
November,
Mackenzie?
We have a woman named Rachel Davis, and this is very interesting. Rachel Davis grew up in a musical family in Michigan. She plays a lot of string instruments. And her parents were both music educators, and they literally drove around the country in the summer times when they had school, they were away from school, and they would go to these bluegrass hootenannies. So Rachel always grew up going to music festivals. It was natural that she would grow up and become a musician. I actually booked the family for June's Kids Rock in the Mackenzie. So I met her parents, I met her husband, who's also a musician, and then I met her son, who's kind of a budding musician, and I got to see the family perform. And I'd already booked her as a solo act for November. Well, the other night, it was Saturday night, and I turned on the Austin City Limits, as I want to do on a Saturday night. And having met Rachel's husband, I knew that he was very involved in local music in Nashville. They live in Nashville now. He works a great deal with CMT. He tours with Willie Nelson. And I turned on, and there was Rachel's husband playing on Austin City Limits.
How exciting.
Very exciting, and he will probably be with his wife, but she is a force unto herself. She's the end of November in the Mackenzie Room. She's been playing for, I'd say, well, her entire life, and she's probably in her 40s at this point. An absolute delight, does almost entirely original compositions, but she will bring in things like Richie Havens, things from the 60s, a lot of protest songs, and put her spin on it. So that's going to be wonderful. And then in December, we're going to have a local gentleman named Jared Bartman, and he's going to come out. He plays with his wife, but he also plays with a string quartet.
Oh.
He has quite a good local following, and he does tour North America. So he'll be closing out our holiday series for 2013 for Music in the Mackenzie.
That'll be wonderful.
It'll be
Yeah.
great.
It's always so nice just to take a break, come get some books, listen to music for a couple hours. What a great way to put the week behind you and start a new week, and it's so accessible. There's a lot of people who would like to enjoy music, but they can't go out late at night to a bar, or they can't get in because of mobility issues.
Exactly.
And this is the place that's so easy to get to, and it's in the middle of the afternoon, and it's free. So
And people, what I think is really neat is that people will come in, they'll bring their own coffee, they'll get coffee from the machine. Sometimes they bring a sack lunch. more than not, I see people who bring stacks of the Sunday paper, and they will sit for the 2 hours and listen to the music and read the paper, and it has been so much fun seeing people come in and just get comfortable with the environment. And then they visit during the intermission, and you see connections being made, and so it really is a wonderful afternoon. As you said, it's safe. It's in the middle of the day. It's easy to get to, and it's absolutely free.
Yes,
so
no really stairs to deal with, and that's what I think a lot of people who are music lovers have been kind of shut out of being able to go to things, and now can come. So
easily.
That's been a great thing.
Yes.
Yeah. So anything else noteworthy going on in October here that we need to make sure people get to?
Well, we've got a lot of the Women's History celebration of women's artists going on. Of course, we have our Monday films at the North Branch.
Yes.
It used to be Carol May's series. We do have a gallery walk on today, actually, so if people made it today, they would have been able to get there. One thing that we do have, and we already had the first session on Monday night, but we will have the second session next Monday. People have the chance. We have local authors that are going to do a talk, and they're going to come in and they're going to basically give their perspective about what it's like to be a working author. So we've got, Terry Bibo and Pam Adams and Deborah Riddell, who does children's books. And it's a way for people just to kind of come out and ask questions. We have a very accessible group of women. Tara Hale will be there. On Monday, we're going to actually have Demetrius Worley, Monica Vest-Wheeler, who's done incredible story times for us, Brenda Rothert, and Terry Bibo. So if they come out on the 28th, 6 to 7 o'clock at the North Branch, we're going to provide some water. Bring your sack dinner. Sit down and enjoy it with us on Monday.
Will there be books for sale or autograph?
They're not going to be selling any books, but they're going to be there just to discuss their work and read from their work, workshop a little bit. It was very popular last Monday night, so we're hoping for another lovely turnout.
Yeah, and that's a great lead into November with NaNoWriMo month.
NaNoWriMo, I always have problems with that.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo, write a whole novel in a month.
Yes.
And the reason I'm familiar with that one is I do have a friend who's a working author who all through November will post her updates about how many pages she wrote that day or how many words. And 2 years in a row she's actually finished a novel during NaNoWriMo. So
it's a great way for people to feel accountable.
Just do it.
It's not everybody's
Set a
process,
goal and do it.
Yeah, forces them to be vocal about it.
Yeah, exactly. Fun. And so we're all behind that with providing space for people to do that in November.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you can find, of course, the dates and times on our website or call and ask. It's at Lakeview. But one of the other things that's going on is Peoria Reads, and we're doing it very differently this year because rather than in the past, we've always had a month in the spring where we did a whole bunch of programs in 1 month. But this year, because we're partnering with Bradley and it's the 50th anniversary of so many important civil rights events, that it's going to go for this whole year.
Yes.
And so what's our book?
Oh my gosh, Warrior Among Us. Is that correct?
Warriors Don't Cry.
Warriors Don't Cry. Warriors Don't Cry. Yes, I was thinking, because in my mind I'm thinking about Lily Ledbetter.
Oh yeah, you're back on that.
I'm already thinking about all the events that we've got in the January event, the One Woman Show.
Yeah.
Yes, Warriors Don't Cry. There are two versions. There's an adult version and an abridged version that we hope to make available to people. As you said, Bradley is also reading this book. They're doing a read-in of this book all over campus.
Right, and this book is the sort of biography, first-person tale of the Little Rock Nine, who of course were the high school students who just wanted a better education. And they went through horrible things. The governor, or it was ruled by the Supreme Court that yes, they could attend the white high school.
Right.
It was 9 black students. And they had the police and all were blocking them at the governor's order from going into the school. And the president called out the National Guard to make sure they could go into the school. And there's these pictures, just horrible when you see the pictures of these children who just want an education. And there's angry mobs screaming, calling them names. And they were tortured that year while they were in school. And this book is the perspective of one of the students who attended and went through that. And it's interesting because there is a Little Rock Nine Foundation. You can find them on the web, but the 9 of them have all achieved some pretty interesting things. Many of them write and talk about their experience. the first people who, put their toe in the water in some very, very segregated areas of our country and were the lab rats, basically. True. As laws were passed, they were the ones who had the courage. I mean, they could have quit. They could have said, no, I'm not going to do this. But they stuck with it. They graduated from this high school. They obviously, intelligent and really wanted to learn, or why would you put up with that?
Well, and her story was so interesting from birth even. She'd faced
Yes.
a ton of adversity, health problems, and when in her perspective you see racial problems on such a personal level that it's just absolutely unimaginable that she would have the strength and resilience to go through what she did from birth on. We are actually lucky enough to know that one of the original Little Rock Nine will be speaking at Bradley. And
yes,
that's part of the calendar of events. In addition to earlier in the year, we celebrated the anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech. It is going to be a very significant year for civil rights anniversaries.
Yes. And of course at Peoria Public Library, as we get into June even, which is another reason this is going so long, we have our exhibit Lincoln and the Constitution, which is a traveling exhibit. It's traveling the country. We're going to have that in our gallery. We also have a series of movies about civil rights. There's, I know, The Abolitionists, and can't quite recall what the other three are, but those will all be moderated discussions with scholars that will talk about civil rights and the advance of civil rights in this country from, early days on. So it's going to be a good year and a good book to read. Lots of book discussions will be scheduled, and you'll be able to find those. But first step is just get the book. Get the book. You can find it at PeoriaReads.com, what it is, what the events are. Just get the book, start reading, and you'll be ready for whatever comes along and be able to participate. So thank you, Stacy, for telling us about all these things. And October is a great month for women and women artists in Peoria, so come down and see us. Once again, you can find all these events if you miss the dates and times on our website at peoriapubliclibrary.org. You can find out about Peoria Reads at PeoriaReads.com, or just walk into a library and ask, pick up one of our newsletters, or give us a call at 497-2000. We'd be glad to give you the dates and times. We'll see you next week on Information Please.